My biggest takeaway podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to My Biggest Takeaway podcast. I have a very special guest today, somebody that I met online, which I obviously find I think is the best way to meet people because it gets outside our little small town comfort zones. But Grant Dziak, is that right?
Yeah, you got it, man. You nailed it.
I got it. All right, dude. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm looking forward to diving into your story. But I want to talk about how we first started talking first,
Yeah.
and I think it really came around through the cold plunge. I don't know who started following who first or how we essentially got connected, but that was the first conversation and something that you told me changed a lot for me. And you don't know that, but it did. And when I got in the cold plunge, you said, "Hey, when you're in the cold plunge, focus on something that's hard that's on your plate so
Mhm.
that when you go to do that thing, it's much easier because the hardest time to think about it is while you're freezing cold."
Yeah.
And I'm able to tackle now things with a little less stress because I think about the hard stuff that we have coming in our life or the hard things
Mm.
that I'm dealing with in the tub when it's the hardest to actually think. So now I'm mentally fucked and physically fucked,
Yeah.
and I'm really trying to process it. And I'll be honest, I've had some times where I'm like in the tub, like yelling when I'm like, it's been a minute, right? And I'm just you feel this frustration coming over you. And then it's like you're able to calm down, relax. You get out of the tub with a whole new game plan or a new appreciation, or like, hey, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. 100%, man. I think
How did
there's
you come across that?
the cold, like all the stuff with the cold immersion.
Oh, I would say more or less that thought process inside the tub.
So everything I do, I've always been fascinated by behavioral psychology and just humans in general. Like I was super interested in it before I even like knew the term behavioral psychology or knew that psychology. Like I grew up a total jock, and I think I played into that role because, and I think that's what we do a lot of the time is, I was a pretty chubby kid growing up. I was big, and I think I found solace in a little bit of a comfort zone in being the jock because I'd rather be the jock than the fat ass. And so it's like I played into that so much. So I literally carried out the behaviors. I didn't read. I didn't really show up for class. Class always kind of came easy to me until about my junior year in high school. And then I realized I was going to have to work for it. And but it didn't match this identity I'd given myself. But I loved psychology because I grew up with a pretty abusive alcoholic father. And when I say grew up with him, my biological father is that. To me, that's not really my dad. My uncle was always the man in my life, the guiding light for me. So I got to experience a lot of behavior, and you can say trauma. I have a lot of sisters, and almost all of my sisters. I'm the only one who never actually lived at my dad's, and they've all been battled a lot of mental health things throughout their life, most of them.
Sure.
And I have too from some of the exposure to those things. But I also had this beautiful gift that where I kind of I'd go down and visit, and I'd get pulled out of it, and then I would get it kind of shaped and scoped by my mom, my grandma, my grandpa, like everybody on my mom's side. And none of them ever talked poorly about him. In fact, they all encouraged me to have this great relationship. So it kind of started giving me this view of two worlds at the same time. And I've always felt my whole life like I kind of walk between two worlds, right? Where I can experience pain, I can feel the pain, but I also have a different like perspective of it. So I get to see it through two lenses. So the psychology aspect of everything has always been fascinating to me. The way we can think, the way we can experience depression, the way we can experience suicidal thoughts. But if your body's the thing that's experiencing the feeling of that, and your brain's firing the chemistry of that, but there's some voice outside of those going like, I want to be here. I think there's hope. There's a reason to be here. Then we must not be our body or our brain. And if my body and my brain are what are responding when I get in a stressful situation like ice water, and my body's feeling the cold and my brain's telling me all the stories why you need to get out, why you need to do all these things. The same thing is like people experience, I think, when they meditate, they sit down and they go, I hate meditating. I hate the thoughts that come in. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. It's the things that you experience when you shut off all the distraction.
Mm.
And I especially think this day and age with the cold immersion, I think what it does is, like you were saying, it's like I'm physically fucked, I'm mentally fucked. It's because you are forced to be in your body in that moment. You are forced to be there because if you're in your brain focuses and hyper focuses on all the threats. So if you're in your head, you're gonna, which is the masculine thing to do, which so many of us operate from all the time, to actually be present in your body. You think of your body as your entire emotional center. So when you're present in your body and you're like, when I said, acknowledge the things that are difficult in your life. And a new big thing that I do when I facilitate people through cold immersion is I'm like, acknowledge the pain you feel, acknowledge the pain in your shins, acknowledge the discomfort of the tingling in your toes. Otherwise, what are you regulating against? And I think the cold immersion is such a representation of the way we handle things in life is we try to numb out to it all the time. People say like, I get in there and I fight it for whatever, a minute, 90 seconds, and then my body goes numb and then it's fine. And it's like, why do you want to be numb? Why do you want to go through life being numb just because you have pain in life? But nothing exists without its contrast. So if you're numbing yourself out to the pain, you're also simultaneously numbing yourself out to the joy and the things that you want to experience in life. So take it on and like face that shit, like face the things that are uncomfortable, acknowledge what they are. Otherwise, there's nothing you're actually overcoming in life ever.
It's funny you say that because I'm always like, if I get to the 2-minute mark, I'm good. My body's kind of deregulated, and I'm like, nah, I'm in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I can make it to 3, I can make it to 5. If I can make it to 5, I can make it to 7, right? The truth is, you can stay in there indefinitely until you can't get up, right?
Right.
This based on those choices we decide to make. But it's funny that you say that because I've had a lot of people. I've been to different retreats, and like we're going to cold plunge. It's the first time, and there is a really strong correlation between somebody's personal life and being able to handle that cold water immersion.
So much.
And to where like their personal life, they talk about is chaotic. They can't handle the water. It's like, well, you can't handle the water because you can't control your emotions.
Right. Yeah.
And it's because the emotions are what make you want to get out. I mean, because it hurts, but you're okay, right? That's the premise. Is like it hurts, but you're okay.
Well, it's kind of
in
like
life, like things happen, but you're okay.
But that's the thing is we condition ourselves to believe otherwise. It's all about the conditioning and the way we operate with those things. You can put your hand on a hot stove when you're a kid because you don't know any better yet because you haven't done that. You haven't created that anchor yet. Put your hand on a hot stove, burn the hell out of your hand. You get a little blister. And literally, as I say that, I have a mark from a blister that I got burning my hand when I was little. But you put your hand on a stove, burn, and now you anchor it into your brain. This is hot. From conception until 7, 8 years old, you don't have your frontal cortex hasn't developed yet. You don't have logical thinking. Whatever happens, you absorb it and you just anchor it in. So I can remember plenty of times being cold when I was little, especially living in Ohio, and like your fingers get like biting cold, like you're out too long in the. So you start learning and you start telling yourself like the cold is something I don't like, and you don't ever go back and revisit it. But we do the same things with like a parent says, they're having your parents having a stressful day, maybe your mom, your dad, and say you're like 4 years old and you're just this sponge, right? And you guys are in a store and you see something you want, a toy you want, and you're like, I want that. And you keep nagging them. And you don't have the perception yet that it's like, maybe dad's having a bad day. And he looks at you and finally snaps at you. He goes, you don't deserve that. You in your mind don't have logical things. So you don't sift through the information and go, man, like dad's having a bad day. He doesn't mean that. You anchor it, you absorb it in. You don't sift through it. You go, I don't deserve the things I want in life. And at that point, you then go about that behavior the rest of your life until you interrupt it somehow. And that's all we're doing with these things is like cold immersion is intentional stress put on your body that you are putting yourself into. Why would I want to put myself into that? Like, why would I do that? And then when I do it, and then I break down the perception that I have around it, like I can sit in here and like you'll see people, their hands are underwater. And at first they're like, oh, and they're fighting it. And you bring them back to their breath. And instead of taking you up really high in this extreme fight or flight where you're releasing adrenaline, cortisol, and you can handle the pain, it's like we take you down so low where you become able to regulate, become able to observe your body, your brain, your thoughts, the way everything's happening. And we'll even mess around with it. We'll get you so embodied where you're looking at your hands underwater and you're like, oh my God, how is this me? I'm not feeling this. And then I'll give you some math problems, which shoots the attention back up to your brain. You have to use logical thinking. And then all of a sudden you see them start shivering. You come back to your breath and you see them drop back into their body again. And it's this periodization back and forth between the body and the brain. And most of us live heady. Most of us live in our brain all the time. And I think this comes down to the masculine and feminine very strongly. And I don't think it's not that anyone's trying to be ultra masculine. I think it's that everyone's avoiding their feminine energy. men and women both. I think women perceive feminine energy as this negative thing that gets kind of shunned upon. They have to show up super hard and strong in today's society. And then I think men are afraid to actually be their masculine selves. At the same time, they're not trying to be feminine, but they're like, everything I see, if I'm if I'm masculine, is shunned, and I'm going to get canceled, and I'm going to be an oppressor, and I'm part of the patriarchy, and I'm part of the problem. And it's like, dude, what if at the end of the day, masculinity wasn't this toxic thing? You know, there's not toxic masculinity. There's toxic people, and there's people that don't do things to work on themselves, to put themselves in check, to emotionally regulate themselves. And, you know, everyone talks about how you need to control your emotions. And I think men and by and large have this tendency to suppress that, which is, to me, if your body's your emotional center and you get in ice water, it's that I'm going to numb out to this, as opposed to I want to feel every bit of it. To me, controlling your emotions isn't about suppressing it. It's about mastering your emotions. Like, emotional mastery to me is the number one thing anybody can ever, like, the skill set they can have in their life.
I think you said something that's really big there, and I kind of want to dive into that. Is pointing the finger to something else instead of saying like, hey, this is actually a me thing, not a substance thing or a situational thing. Right. So for example, people are like, well, yeah, I said all those things because I was drunk. I'm like, no, you said all those things because you're an asshole and alcohol just pulled down your guard for you to say them. Right. Or it's like, you know, the same concept of like, well, like guns kill people. And it's like, no, people kill people. That's just the tool in which it's used.
Yes.
Right. Or another one is like, obviously in the fitness world, it's like, well, like roid rage. It's like, well, no, that's the person. It has nothing to do with the substance in which that person's taking. I think that comes along that self accountability of like, I'm the issue, I'm the problem. I need to fix me, because you can insert any type of substance or scenario and those things are still going to happen because I'm broken. I need to be fixed.
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about, go ahead.
Well, it's just, and people are always constantly, I think everyone's constantly seeking like the tiniest crack to explode through. It's like, I remember when I used to be above, I had been done playing football. I was running bars and restaurants, and I got like totally sucked up into the bar industry. I was drinking pretty much a bottle of Crown a day every shift. You know, you do a chaser of Coca-Cola with each one. You're drinking a 2-liter of Coca-Cola, a bottle of Crown Royal every day. You eat like shit. You feel like shit. But I remember during that time of my life, it's like I would have like one shot and immediately be like, oh, none of it matters. And I just start eating whatever I wanted, and I would justify it by that. And I think that's what we all do. It's like we look for any excuse. I had this happen to me, so I can behave this way. And it's easy to fall into those behaviors because the behaviors we're all seeking most of the time is distracting us from the actual pain or the emotional side of us that we're experiencing that we don't feel like we're supposed to like tap into.
I think something you said there, I said on a podcast last week, is that I've always tried to get people to understand, obviously being in the fitness space and used to be a trainer and coach people, was like, I don't necessarily believe full-heartedly about like emotional eating and then like I can't control it, right? Somebody that competed 13 times, like if there's one thing that you can control in your life, it's what you put in your mouth. Right. It's a pretty simple concept.
That has many meanings and context to it. Yes, I agree with that.
So if I can control what I eat, it's black or white. But it's just, well, this one thing happened. So for a brief moment, I said, fuck it. And then that explodes like you were talking about through that crack. And I think it's a really great example I've never heard before, to where it's like, if I just get this one little thing, I'm just going to explode it and be like, well, everything's ruined because this one little thing happened. I think that obviously also defines the definition of discipline in a roundabout way. It's like, just because that happened doesn't mean everything else falls out of place, right?
Well, I think it's
because
like,
I'm going to a bar doesn't mean I need to get shit faced.
Yes. But you're looking for the excuse to be able to do that. It's like, you know, I love the analogy. Like when you drop your cell phone, what do? If you drop your cell phone up here, you're like, you look like you're playing hacky sack because you're doing absolutely everything within your power to not let it hit the ground.
Oh yeah. The foot's coming out, baby.
Yeah. And then you hit the ground, it hits the ground. What do? You pick it up and you're like, oh God, like you're reaching down for it. And that feeling where it falls into the pit of your stomach. You're like, oh my God, please don't be cracked. Please don't lose all my stuff. You pick it up and you dust it off. And half of us walk around, like the majority of people you see walking around, the phones they use all day, every day to do all of their business, everything. It's like a super cracked screen because they're just trying to salvage whatever they have left. They don't kick it till it's in a million pieces. But like in life, what we do is we'll take the smallest crack that we have and we'll just trash our entire day, our diet, our routine, whatever it is, because all we're ever trying to do is we're like finding reasons to avoid discomfort. But the thing about it is, and you said the word discipline, and I think I'm not going to say I have like a super unique take on it, but I think there's discipline. And I think, yes, I think discipline definitely outweighs motivation, but I think there's one thing that outweighs discipline, and it's awareness. And because I believe awareness will tell you what your discipline actually needs to be. You know, there's some days you need to not go to the gym. You popped your pec yesterday and you're like, I got to do shoulders today. Well, you're going to hurt yourself even more. You're going to be laid up even longer. Don't get me wrong. The majority of the time, the discipline's like, get your ass to the gym, do the thing, whatever it is.
Sure. Or at
But
least stay on the diet, right?
yeah,
Don't let the shoulder injury stop you from dieting or still getting in your walks or still giving a shit about the rest of the things that you've got going on, right?
well, I think what
And so I
happens with
think that
that is habits. It's habits. People don't even
Mhm.
realize, like you were saying, like we can control. Yeah, you can control what you eat and what you do. And I think with a lot of people, it's you can control what you eat, but you have to even eat. You know, most people are caught up in this idea. I work with so many people that are even scared to eat food because of their correlation they've made throughout their life. You know, food equates to me being fat. And if I'm fat, that means I'm going to be unlovable and I'm going to be unaccepted. And it gets to a point
Mm.
where it's like everyone's done this, where you drive 20, 30 minutes to somewhere on a regular basis. Maybe, yeah, 20, 30 minutes away. And you get there and all of a sudden you go, holy shit, how'd I get here? And you look around, you're like, oh my God, I like blacked out. And you mean to tell me you drove a 2-ton vehicle, 60, 70 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, stopping at stoplights, all these things, and you don't have any conscious awareness of how you actually got there? That means you're running on a program now. That means your body knows how to do it better than your brain does. Because your brain has 4 functions. It's survival, pain avoidance, energy efficiency, and the last is pleasure. Like your brain is never like out. It doesn't wake up every day. It's like, let's make you happy. It goes, let's keep you alive, let's keep you away from pain, and let's make you run on as many programs as possible. Because my brain makes up 5% of my body mass, but it consumes over 25% of the calories. So it doesn't want to do new things. That's why when you try to make a change in your life, it feels so difficult because your subconscious takes over. So if I told you right now that, eating a different way is going to benefit you, on the surface, you go, yeah, cool, awesome, I'll do that. And then 2 days later, it's like, I can't do that. I can't sustain that. Even though 2 days before that, you're like, I get it. I'm not going to see the results for 8 weeks. I'm going to have to kind of suck it up for a little bit. But it's just like anything else that we do. If I told you I'll give you 50 grand if for the next 30 days you brush your teeth with the opposite hand, you're going to go in tomorrow. You're going to grab it with the same hand you always grab it with. And you're going to go, oh shit, and switch. Day 2, you're going to go and grab it with the same hand and go, oh. So even though there's this massive benefit for you, your body is operating on patterns and programs. So what do? Eventually, you're going to go, I know there's such a good benefit for me, whether it's the food, whether it's the way I brush my teeth, but I keep getting tripped up. So I have to put something external in place because internally I'm resorting back to what my body knows how to do, and I'm not even thinking about it anymore. So eventually you're going to take like a post-it note or something. You're going to put it on that toothbrush. So before I can grab that toothbrush, I'm going to remind myself there's going to be something that jogs my memory and goes, oh, grab it with your other hand. Cool. You're going to start doing that over and over and over and over every single day. And eventually you can take that post-it note away, and now your body knows how to grab it with your left hand instead of your right hand, and it resorts to that. You flushed out the old habit. And it's like, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to working out, when it comes to changing the way you do business, the way you talk to people, the way you show up in your relationships, and the way you take care of yourself. I love the analogy that Peter Sage uses, that it's like when we're consciously trying to make a change in our life, it's like we're this super motivated mouse that just went to a seminar all weekend. You had like Tony Robbins yelling in your face. You're motivated, you're headed due north towards everything you want in life. You just don't realize that you're on, from 66 to 365 days, you're on the back of an elephant that's headed south. So you feel like you're doing all these actions and making these changes, but everything around you, it looks like the scenery is still moving backwards. So you get super discouraged. You go, this isn't worth it. And it's like, at one point when you created the current habit that you have and wrote the program that you're operating on, you've been compounding that for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And now you're 3-4 days into trying to change it. And you go, this is impossible. And it's like, no, just keep going. That's all you have to do. It's just blind faith.
So you said that people you work with. What is exactly that you do?
So for like in 2014, I used to be about 320 pounds, and I've worked out my entire life. I trained my entire life. I played football in college, and like I said, when I got done playing football, I just kind of went AWOL. I was partying a lot. I was drinking way too much, and still like telling me I'm an athlete. I'm good. Until one day I look down and I'm like, I'm wearing one of those like kind of stretchy dress shirts from Express, and like these buttons are like just barely hanging on for dear life. And one of the servers that worked there, like she was a fitness model, and like we made this little bet with each other for Cinco de Mayo. So this is November. So in January, I changed my diet, my routine. I quit drinking. I just shifted everything, and I ended up dropping about like 80, 90 pounds in 5 months. And now I don't recommend
Wow.
that, but I mean, I changed everything on a dime. And, and from there, I just started like sharing a little bit of here and there and started picking up traction. And I knew I wanted to do something in the fitness realm, and I didn't know what exactly. So it was kind of like Ralphie in A Christmas Story. I was talking to my buddy that owned a gym in Columbus, and I was like, I think I want to do something like this, maybe work with your company. At that point, one of my good friends was the owner of Muscle Farm. And it
Okay.
was like, could I do something through there? And he's like, what do you want to do? Why don't you be a trainer? He's like, you pretty much train people all the time anyways. You want to train people? And I was just like, yeah, trainer. Cool. And I had no idea, but I had already ran the bars and been downtown for like 8 years at that point. And on a Thursday, he said, cool, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to give away a bunch of sessions. You're gonna have to get testimonials, and you'll build your brand over the course of the next 6 months or so. That was on a Thursday, and by Monday morning, I had like 68 clients. I had no idea what I was doing really, and it was just people that had been coming to the bar all week, and I just had great relationships with.
Yeah.
And I,
If there's one thing, like a bartender knows everybody in town.
yeah, and it's like, as far as being a trainer, it is the most amazing job security ever, because you're at this bar where people are drinking their sorrows away, and then you're like, you want to feel better about yourself? So then I started training all these people, and pretty quickly I realized that I'd already had it for a long time, and I couldn't explain. I had zero formulation for it. I felt like I saw people and understood people really well. And then
Mm.
I was doing this fitness thing, and I was firing through all these clients all the time. And I saw that I had clients that adhered to absolutely everything, but they didn't really get the results. And then I had these clients who didn't necessarily adhere to everything, but they were getting amazing results. And the difference between the two are the ones who were getting the results were happy. They had less stress in their life. They weren't pissed off all the time. And the ones who weren't getting the results, but they were doing actionably everything, they'd be down in a 6-minute plank. And that's the thing, is when you get into your body, when you get into an ice tub, when you're doing anything with your body, a lot of emotions come up because you're present with yourself. You're present with your emotions. You're present with your
Hmm.
subconscious, whether you realize it or not. And you're in the middle of a 6-minute plank. And next thing you know, you're telling people about how you're cheating on your husband or your wife or your kids, and you have a horrible relationship, or your business is falling apart and you don't know how to save it. And I was like, shit, this is what I want to talk about. And I went 5 or 6 years thinking I had to use fitness as my medium, as like my vessel to pull people in, to even be able to talk to them about these things. And then eventually I just shifted, and I went through this other whole business endeavor. I stepped away from everything I was doing, went through a big business endeavor, lost my ass with a business partner, and got kind of screwed over. And at that point, I was the most broke I'd ever been. I was 32 years old. My mom was helping me pay my truck payment, and I was like down on myself about everything. And then I heard Gary Vee say, when you own all of your own shortcomings, they have no power over you. And I was like, I don't really know what that means. But I picked up my phone, and I just started like, every morning I would talk about some shit about myself, and I was attacking myself. I was calling myself out. And I didn't even realize what I was doing at the time, but it started picking up all this traction. I started calling it a morning rant, and I started connecting with people, and people would reach out and they'd be like, man, you just saved my life. I was going to kill myself, or I was experiencing this, or I've been stuck in this place. And what you just said gave me formulation. I was like, that's so cool. But like, how's this happening? And I realized it's because I'm not telling them what to do. I'm using myself as the target. And because of that, they don't feel attacked. Their nervous system isn't activating. They can hear it, and then they can apply the principles to themselves. And that's how they're formulating these things. I was the analogy for them. So I started realizing, and I started diving more into psychology and how the brain works and how it's aligned with our body and how we have all these patterns and things that we do. Started, dove into like Joe Dispenza, all that stuff, the whole 9 yards.
Hmm.
And I started realizing that fitness was just my vessel to get into people's lives. And I went purely full time into this realm of for lack of a better term, life coaching. It's
Mhm.
taking people and helping them perform at a much higher level. And it doesn't matter who you are. We've worked with kids that are 19 that built an app, sold it for thousands and thousands of dollars, and have no direction in life. People who are millionaires, made tons of money, but they don't know how to embody it. They're still depressed because they thought the money was going to solve all their problems. So we teach people how to embody.
Right.
We work with actors in Hollywood. We work with high level athletes, and we also work with just the average person on the street. Because at the end of the day, if you have a nervous system, air in your lungs, and a heartbeat in your chest, like, we can help you. And 5 years ago, my wife and I met, and she had a lot of things she was kind of working through. And if anyone's ever been in a relationship, damn well, like, you might be able to help a lot of people, but when it comes to a significant other, like, things don't just land the same way. Like, you can see some of your, like, you can go to the gym
Why
with your
didn't she
significant.
listen like that client? Yeah.
I know, like, but it took a long time, but she opened up to all these things, and she worked on herself so much, and we hit a point where about 2.5 years ago, she closed her business. She built this amazing business, and she felt like she was called to do a little something more. Like, she felt more aligned with in the realm of what I was doing, and we kind of both shut down both of our businesses and launched ours together. And we've been going, coming up on 3 years this spring together, where we work with people. We help people overcome the obstacles that they have in their life. It's kind of like a reverse engineered approach to
Mhm.
therapy, psychology, psychiatry. And because we're none of those things, and we make it very clear we're not hamstrung by certain laws and rules. And we are very, very clear to stay in our lane. But sometimes people need, like, the unorthodox thing. Some people need to say, man, I feel like I'm going to kill myself, and not be shamed for it, but instead, like, hey, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Because that's not what they're expecting. All you have to do is interrupt someone's thought pattern. And that's not what they're expecting. So when you give someone what they're not expecting, it interrupts their thought pattern. When you interrupt their thought pattern, you change the emotion and resonance that they have in their body.
Dude, I think that's needed, because I've hired in the past myself. I've hired someone that does like what you do. His name is Brandon Grew, breathwork facilitator, essentially. When I was going through, I would say, going through the divorces after essentially the divorce that I had, where I had business wrapped together and there was foul play, whatever you want to call it. And it was tough. It was trying to go through, especially with somebody to build a business with. And I went to normal therapy and just didn't do anything for me. I'm smart enough to know the things that are supposed to be said, and I know all the answers to everything, and I know that there's not a why that can be answered, and this, that, whatever. But it was like I need to actually do something physically to get past that. And a lot of that's just tied to a lot of my own trauma that I had growing up. Right, my dad was basically a perfectionist, my way or the highway. So enough was something I really struggled with. Right. And I would say oftentimes I still struggle with it, which might be why I work as much as I do or try to excel to this level. I'm trying to prove something to somebody. I haven't pinpointed who that person is. Um, but it's, something I try to deal with. So I commend you for opening that up and helping people with things that I think more people need help with. Um, ask you a weird question. Um, what's the number one thing a client has taught you?
Oh man. Uh, that's kind of endless. I feel like it's I've never been asked that question, truly. Um, I've had a lot of things pop
We're
up over
always
the
the
years.
teachers, but
Yeah.
oftentimes we're the student. But what struck you so much that made you go, wow, appreciate that, Tony? That's a
Yeah.
good nugget.
I think one of the most amazing things was I'd been working with this woman for 2 years, or yeah, about a year and a half. And she had a lot of trauma in her life. She was part of sex trafficking when she was younger. When we started working together, um, relapse after relapse, she'd been relapsing nonstop for 20 years, suicide attempts, in and out of rehab, um, and a lot of attention on her, obviously. And 2 years in, she reached out to me one day and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And she's like, "No, you're no." She's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she called me. And then while she was calling me, she hit the FaceTime to FaceTime me. And I was like, "What's up? How's it?" I was like, "Is everything okay with you?" And she had worked with me so long. She had literally picked up on everything that I did with her. She was trusting. I got her to the point where, I don't want to say I did. She got herself to the point where she could trust her own intuition, which is what we try to get everyone to, which is a very big embodiment. Trusted her own intuition enough to go, "I feel this, and I feel like there's something going on with you." And I was having a horrible, horrible week. I was struggling really bad. There's a couple different things going on in my life. And in that moment, I I knew I had two options. I could either try to cover it up and be the coach and be the guide and be the expert, or I could be the human. And what hit me more than anything was, I was like, all the work we've done was to get you to this point to be able to trust yourself. Like, what a piece of shit I would be to protect my own ego by denying you the truth of what you're telling me right now. So I opened up and I was like, yes, and this is what's happening. This is what's going on. And she literally coached me back, and she coached me so deeply and led me to the part of myself that I was struggling with. And it really is this beautiful realization. And it was that much more confirmation of something I say all the time is like, we tell people all the time, we're like, we're not the experts. We're not gurus. We're not anything. We're not you. Like, you can see this in other people. It's just, we're so disconnected from ourselves on a regular basis that we don't trust our intuition. Like, you know how to eat, you know how to market your business, you know what business you want to create, you know what you want to, what gift you have to bring to the world. But it's like, we kind of cover it up with all these layers over time.
Mm.
And, but because of that, we can't see our own shortcomings because we have our own emotional attachment to everything. And in that moment, it reconfirmed. I was like, it is so true. Like, we are all, no matter how far gone any of us seem, we all have this innate ability to connect with one another over pain. But what do we do through social media? We try to connect with everyone over, like, look at my fancy car, look at my house, look at how much money I have. And it's actually our pain points that connect all of us. And through that experience, I realized, like, we are all truly born the same. And when I say that, I'm not talking about everyone gets a trophy. I'm saying, like, we are all born the same, that we all have the same basic human needs. And at that point, it's like a Plinko game. Wherever you get dropped on the board, it just, you bounce around from different experiences. And that's what gives you your unique take on life and your unique perspective. And that's what ends up changing us, is that, like, if you and I grew up in the same household, like, we'd have some differences on things, but we would understand each other the same way. We kind of approach a lot of the things the same way. So it's our environment that we grew up in. And we're all actually so much more alike than we are different. But we all try to connect on the thing that is our magic, like the things that we love. What you love, what excites you is so different than what excites me. But the worst thing you've ever experienced is relative to the same worst thing I've ever experienced. Be like,
Mm.
and because, and what everyone does is we undersell ourselves, or we try to compare. We either overshoot how bad our lives are, or we undershoot. We either go, man, nobody has it as bad as I do, or you don't understand me, or we go, everyone has it worse than me. There's always someone worse out there. So we don't truly acknowledge what we're feeling and experiencing. But what I always tell people is, if you were walking down the street and I kicked you in the side of your knee and I blew out your ACL, you're laying on the ground and it doesn't feel very good. So, but then if I walk over and I shoot someone in the chest with a bullet, the ER is going to prioritize them. But do you feel any better? Are you walking any faster? Are you still in pain laying on the ground? Because he got shot in the chest, does your pain in your kneecap go away? And it's like, no, it doesn't affect anything. So if that's the worst thing you've ever experienced, it's relative to what he experienced. But we all have this thing where we all want to protect our own shit in life and be like, no, mine's the worst. And it's like, no, it's relative. We can all connect. Trust your intuition. You can connect with literally anybody at all, anyone. Like you were saying, like, when we connected on social media, it's because, you had shared that, like, you had just started doing ice baths. And I was like, well, I remember what it was like when I started doing ice baths, and how long it took me to get to the point of, like,
Yeah.
playing with the psychology behind things. So I was just like, that's why I was just like, here, man, like, this is, I remember being like, maybe he's like, what is this dude talking to me about? Cause it was just like any tips, anything I had, because to me, it was such a thing. And I think that's how we actually experience life, is like, when you experience a breakthrough in something, when you feel good about something, when you get through some shit, you actually want to share it with people.
Mhm.
The problem is so many of us are so attached to our trauma, our pain, and everything we've experienced in life that it becomes more of this game of like frat house hazing, where it's like, I went through it, you have to go through it. And it's like, why? Why don't you utilize what you've gone through? Why don't you utilize your pain and help expedite the next person through theirs? Because unquestionably, they have something they can help expedite you through.
I think you said something very powerful that I know that I do. And one of the things I do often is I go, I mean, I can handle it. It's not as bad as what I've seen or what I know people have gone through. Like, my life's good. It's not that bad. So I just like, belittle the problems because of course, they could be worse. Right. So I think there's some gratitude there, but at the same time, there's a lot of masking, as you said, because it's like, well, I'm still dealing with those things. I'm putting a band-aid over them instead of like fully addressing, like, well, that is a concern of mine. Maybe it's a first world concern, but it's still a concern.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I can complain about this, that, whatever, but I got running water. So whatever. I think that's beautiful, but at the same time, it doesn't mean you have happiness. You still have the
Right.
pain.
Right.
What would be your advice for somebody in that situation that is like going through something, but at the same time, they know that other people are going through bigger things, so they don't address it?
Yeah. Um, like, what does that do for you? Like, seriously, what is the pain that somebody else is experiencing? What does that do for you? How does that change? Does that change the way you're showing up? Does that change the way you snap or have tolerance with your significant other? The way you show up to the relationship with your children, the way you show up to your job, your creativity. Just because somebody else is going through something worse, are you not experiencing stress in your body? Are you not releasing cortisol? Is your nervous system not activated? Are you waking up and being happy? And like you said something really profound, and it's like you look at the things you're experiencing and it goes, my life's okay. And it's like, do you want an okay life? And that's what you just got to ask someone, is like, is that what you want? And the problem is most of us don't acknowledge what we actually want. We silence it. We suppress that throughout our entire lives, and we condition ourselves. Like, truly ask somebody what they want. Just, what do you really want in life? And it's so difficult for them to access it and open up. They might say something bullshit on the surface, this kind of car or this, but it's like, what do you really want? And it's because they don't think about it often, because most of us don't think we deserve what we actually want. And that's for the same reason. It's like, we got Christmas coming up. How awkward do you feel opening a present in front of your whole family? And it's like, how do you say thank you? And you can say that to people, and a lot of people are like, oh man, it's so awkward. Right. Because if you say thank you, you're going, I believe I deserve this and I receive this. And to say that is saying, I think I deserve this. And it's like making a proclamation about yourself that somebody else could go, you don't deserve that. And I think that's what it is to own what you're experiencing in life and go, man, this is difficult for me right now. I think you got to remember, your brain is primed to move away from pain before it is to move towards pleasure. So the way that shows up in relationships, we're primed to move away from the possibility of rejection before we are to move towards the possibility of acceptance and companionship. So it's like, if I'm going to share this and I'm going to get shamed for it, yeah, there's a chance they might open up and be understanding, but I'm more concerned with the possibility that they're going to reject me and tell me I don't deserve to feel this way. So it's like, what do you want in life? It's like, going back to that idea that we all, oh, I'm so motivated by this person who makes millions of dollars. Cool. Are they paying your bills? Then get your ass out and do the work yourself. Like, they're not paying your bills. And you can sit there, you can be motivated, but you can be inspired by them. But unless you actually take all that shit and you put it into action, nothing's ever going to happen for you. And you can sit there and you can try to vicariously live through everybody else. It's like, you can sit there and be like, yeah, I have a roof over my head, and I know there's homeless people on the street. So you are allowed to feel gratitude. You can feel gratitude for that. But that does not mean that you have to be accepting of that and just satisfy yourself with less than what you actually want. You're allowed to acknowledge the things that you want in life. You're allowed to have nice things in life, because in order to even get those nice things, it's going to require you to do a level of work to earn those things. And at the end of the day, you can have a lot of it. You can have a lot of material shit. But if you have not gained the capacity to be able to hold it, you're not going to be able to hang on to it very long, and it's going to go away. And at the end of the day, in terms of, I think financials are usually the number one thing that a lot of people stress over. And it's like, money's not going to solve your problems. I've had a lot of money before, and I still had my problems. And I think it goes back to this idea that we're chasing all these external things in our life to try to fulfill these internal voids that we experience. And I think it comes from a very young age of, think of what do you do? Like when you were 1 year old and let's say you shit your diaper at 2 a.m, you didn't stop and go, oh man, mom and dad are sleeping. You just screamed and cried. Like that was your instinct. I need something and I'm going to do whatever I need to get that thing. And I'm allowed to do that. And then eventually you started speaking and your parents were sick and tired of you screaming at 3 a.m. So they say, don't do this. And then don't do that. Don't eat that. Don't go to that place. Don't talk to those people. Don't listen to that kind of music. Don't go to those places. And it kind of like chips away at trusting who we are and what we want to do. And then we seek permission from everyone else. Mom, can I stay out late? Teachers, can I go to the bathroom? Coaches, can I have a water break? Then it's professors. Can I have an extension on my exam? Bosses, can I have next week off work? So we seek permission from everyone outside of us. We seek love from our parents. We seek validation from our parents because they're the first people we feel like we want their love. And it's like we start seeking all these things outside of ourselves our whole life. And you can say it's cliche, whatever. Like you can't love someone else or receive love until you love yourself, because that void you have is not, that's why the person you're with can give you amazing compliments. If you don't think that about yourself, it's why we deflect. Oh man, guys are always like, man, you look great. Oh, I'm just trying to be like you, bro. Like we pass it off immediately. Like our significant other can be like, oh, you look so
Wow.
sexy. And it's like, oh, you look so sexy. When's the last time someone gave you a compliment and you go, I'll receive that. I'll take that. I feel that. And it's like we deflect these things all the time because we don't think we're allowed to have them. So we want all these things, but we don't even know how to take them in. We want love, but then people love us and we go, oh my God, they're cheating on me because I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. We want millions of dollars. We make money and fuck, it doesn't solve all my problems. We want the abs. We want the body. And then we get it. And we're like, oh God, I still feel the same way inside that I do. And in fact, I actually feel pretty unhealthy because I've dieted down so low thinking this is going to get me everything in life. And then you get to the pool because you're like, I need to go on this vacation. And what do? You look across the damn pool where you're sitting there with that giant fountain drink of water and vodka with a lemon in it because that's all you're willing to drink on your vacation because you don't want to gain any weight. But you look across the pool at this big dude in the pool playing beer pong with a big belly and laughing and having fun. It's like, that's what life is. Life is not about abs. Life is not about the dollar amount in your bank account. And it's not about having the most perfect looking relationship on social media. It's like, how do you feel about everything? And it's like, what is the one common denominator in everything you experience in life? And it's you. And it's like, so wouldn't you rather take you and let you show up as the truest version of you in everything that you do?
Dude, that was fucking great. That was so fucking spot on in so many areas of my life personally. Because like I laugh at somebody, hey man, you're looking great, man. Just trying to look like you, bro.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's
I
because we don't
mean,
want to be
I've said
indebted.
that 1,000 fucking times,
Yeah.
and I struggle at saying thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's awkward. It's so fucking awkward. I'm a
Mhm.
giver more than I am a receiver. Because I just struggle with receiving things. And people's like,
Yeah.
"Do you like it?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Well, you don't look like it."
Yeah. 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 I feel that. And it's like, one of the most profound things anybody ever brought to my attention was, I want to say it was like 2013. And when I was running the bars and restaurants, I used to love taking the whole staff out throughout the week. We'd go out, we'd party, we'd show love at all the other bars and stuff. And, I would love taking people out. And I'd have I'd buy everyone. I'd love everyone just getting a little fucked up. We're all walking around and having fun together and buying rounds of drinks for everyone. And then we eventually 3 or 4 bars later, I wouldn't run up to the bar to buy everyone's drinks. And then I'd see everyone getting their own drinks. And I'd sit there and I'd start getting this like anger within me, almost like I was betrayed. Like, where's everyone? Why is no one buying me a drink? And the girl I was dating at the time, she goes, that's not fair. It's not fair to do that. Nobody asked you to buy them their drink. You did it. And you did it under the guise of being like this good person who just wants to show everyone a good time. But you were actually doing it with an expectation. And it's so true. I had an expectation. I was trying to, it was a transaction. I was literally trying to buy my way into feeling significant in other people's lives by thinking I'm going to do this and they're going to turn around and do it for me. And it's going to create this emotion in my body where I feel it's reciprocated and people like me and they want to take care of me the same way. And
Trying to
when she
set the
said that, I was
table
like,
to where
wow,
you get,
yes,
because I'm
yes.
doing all of it just so I can feel thankful that somebody got me something because they felt I'm worthy of getting it.
Yeah. And it's like what you said about I'm a bigger giver than receiver. And I think there's so much that goes into that in the realm of like, it's like none of us, we're all so afraid to be indebted, and that's what it was. I could go out and I love being like, oh, I got this round, or I'll get this, or I'll get gas, or I'll buy this. But when somebody else wants to do it, I'm like, no, no, because then I feel like I'm indebted and I have to return this, like I have to return something to them. And what if I'm going to rack up this, essentially this debit that I have to return to all these people, and I slip up somewhere, and then that makes me question my identity about the quality of human that I am. And people are out there going, man, he owes me money and he owes me money. What it all came down to is I had experienced that a lot of places in life. It was my own projection of my own judgment that I was projecting onto myself. Nobody else was looking at me like that, but that's what I was thinking of myself. And it made me realize that we judge ourselves the way we're judging the world, like the way we assess. Like, so whatever's prevalent to you, and what you notice about other people. And one of our mentors, my wife's and my mentor, he said this really cool thing is like, notice what you notice. And it's like, notice the things that you notice. You're the only one noticing that exact sequence, that exact series of things. Nobody else sees it the way you do. But it's the same way we'll go out and you'll be like, oh my God, my split ends. But nobody sees that because Becky's over there, like, look at my fat ass. And Dave's over there, like, I got a zit on my face. But nobody sees the flaws necessarily in each other. But we're all so consumed with the things we think of ourselves. And it's like, because we dwindle ourselves down to the lowest common denominator, the least possible thing, and we think that's what the value is. And one of my best friends used to be one of the Olympians. He was in the Olympia every year. He was one of the top bodybuilders in the world for a long time. And I asked him, we were sitting at the Arnold together one year, and I was like, dude, when you were up there on the stage, like, even if you got last place, how cool was it to know you were one of the top like 8-10 physiques in the entire world, 8 billion people? And he kind of like looked at me and smiled, and he goes, I was on suicide watch. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I was over 300 pounds. I was below 5% body fat, and I couldn't take my shirt off. I was so insecure. I was like riddled with it because I had put all of my value into my body. And at the peak of the moment of the thing that I've put my value in is when I'm being judged on it. So I'm literally going out and standing fully exposed with a little banana hammock on in front of a panel of judges who are going to judge all of my work, everything I have done for this vessel over the course of 20 weeks, all the days, all the heartache I've gone through, and they're going to judge it in the matter of moments. And it's like, think about what life is. You have the things that are pertinent to you, that are important to you. And everyday life is like your stage. And you're going out there and you have all your insecurities about the things that you put your value in because that's what you're focused on. And you don't think anyone else sees the value that you have. So you feel like you're always being judged for the thing that you care about the most, but you're the only one who sees that quality of yourself.
Mm. Mm. So I can relate to some degree as a bodybuilder or double retired at least. And I started because of the attention which I got, because it was a way for me to get something in return from other people. Right. I didn't get it from pops, but I got it from my friends though.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what essentially like fed that machine for me. But you said something that struck something in my mind that I want to share really quick. And it's I had a friend that is in a very good place financially. And we were out shopping and he was buying some stuff for himself. And he was like, he come over and he was like, hey, I want to get you guys something. And I'm like, no, like not needed. He was like, get the fuck up and pick something out. And I look at the price tag and it's got like a comma in it for like a t-shirt. I'm like, I can't repay this. It was like, he told a story. He was like, there was two guys. There was one Ferrari left, older gentleman and a younger guy. And the older gentleman basically got the rights to purchase the vehicle. And he went to the younger guy and said, I want you to have this car. I want you to get it. He was like, no, man, I can't do that. He was like, don't turn down my blessing. And he was like, moral of the story, pick out a fucking shirt.
Mm.
But he wanted to give with no expectation in return. But he's like, I want to do this for you. Please don't turn down my blessing. And I thought that was so powerful to it's like we do things with expectation in return. But to view it that way, like I'm wanting to just bless this drink upon you. I just want
Yeah.
to literally give it out of the goodness versus that expectation in return. And to me, that was like, and I just had like a moment where I was like, oh shit. Like, this is like true, genuine giving because you put the word blessing on it versus just, I just want to buy you something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so when we're in those places to do so, I just thought that was really powerful and I just wanted to share that. But man, where can people find you at, man?
I just want to hit on one thing you actually said because
Yeah.
it's like that idea of what I was saying earlier about how, as cliche as it sounds, the idea like you can't receive love or feel love or give love
Mm-hmm.
until you know, like you love yourself, truly love yourself. And it's like, and people are like, well, what does that mean? Like I sit in front of a mirror and tell myself these positive affirmations. I love you. No, like that's not what it is the easiest way to think about it is like that. If you had the means to do so, if you had like, fuck you money, where it just like, it totally doesn't matter. And you had a couple of friends that you care about a lot and you're like, I don't really know what to get them. Would you not look at them and go, pick out something? I want to get you something. I want like almost like an exchange of energy. And it's like, you can go, yeah. And do you think you could do that and truly not want anything in return?
Me?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I think I
So,
could give it, but I really, really struggle with receiving it.
right.
Because
Because,
I set a goal. You asked what a want is. A want for me is to be able to call 4 friends. Hey, tell the wives, pack your bag, block these off on the calendar, meet me at the airport. I would love to be able to have that type of power. I also question myself, why do you want that power?
hmm,
Do you want it because you can say you can do that? Or is it because you want to give? And that is my own moral piece there. But yes, like I feel like I can give because I am a big giver to people.
hmm,
I feel like that I am. Not so much I think with my time and my emotions, but um, I often find that gift giving is something I do enjoy doing, and I think
yeah.
it's because I I think part of me feels like sometimes it's because I want to feel that love in return from people because I don't feel like maybe I got it growing up from like my dad. So like I want people to want to do things for me in return. So I do like that is a stone I'm turning right now based off of this conversation.
Cool. I like that because I think it also goes to show that there's probably also an element. There's unquestionably there's an element where you're like, I really do. I want the people I care about because like the more you care about people, the easier it is to empathetically feel them. And then it's like, yeah, it would
Mm-hmm.
be so cool for me to be the source of what's able to make them go, oh my God, that's amazing. Because if I were to receive something like that, oh God, it would be so nice. Like, how good would it feel if you're struggling financially? Someone's just like, yeah, I can see what's happening. Here's $5,000. And then the moment is like, oh my God, it would be amazing. So yes, there is an element of that. There's also an element of it being a transaction where you're paying for certain emotions to come back to you, kind of like giving a homeless person $1 is there's a part of you that you see yourself in that. And at the same time, you're also paying $1 to not feel like shit about yourself later, because you
Mm-hmm.
also want to create the possibility that there is a chance that could be me someday. It obviously exists. And I just want to know that if that were me, somebody would give me $1. So it's like you're trying to create a resonance of what is possible, because if I don't even do it, then how could I depend on anyone else to ever do that for me? So, but how crazy is it? You, all of us, could give these things to other people and go like, no, I truly don't want anything in return. And it's going to be this. And I really, but when it comes to people giving them to us, it's like, we're like, there's no way, there's no ulterior motive or expectation or something attached to this. Like it's difficult for me to receive. And all it comes back to at the end of the day is that we feel indebted to life. We have to pay our way to be a part of the club to be good enough, and we don't get to receive anything because that's just going to like balance our credit out. And it's like, so we're always trying to build up credit and never get debited. So it's like we're always trying to give, never receive, but then we turn around and we go, why doesn't anyone do anything for me? Where's anyone else? And what happens is you only have so much energy within you. And when you're pouring from your cup before you've given to yourself, all you end up doing is you're giving, and literally you are expecting it in return, because you're going, I'm sacrificing everything I have for you. I need you to give it back. But there's no written contract. So when they don't give it back to you, we start feeling depleted more and more. And then we start getting our nervous system activates literally at that, because now my friendships are a threat. The people I have in my life are a threat. I don't trust them. And then we start hearing and seeing the things they do differently, but it's because of us. So the biggest thing we teach people is how to be selfish, because the only way you can ever be selfless is if you're first selfish. If you fill your cup so much, it's literally overflowing. You're not giving from what you don't have. You're literally giving because you have so much. And when you can give from that place, it's like you can do it without expectation.
Dude, this has been fantastic, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of this, because it's if no one else gets anything of it, man, I did.
Awesome. hey, that's good enough for me.
Absolutely, man. Where can people find you at online so I can come learn more about you and follow your journey?
Cool. Just Grant Dziak on Instagram, Facebook. Drop in the DMs, man. I love connecting with people. I love talking to people, getting to know people. Yeah, there's that. And then our website is just thisisme.live. So you can find anything between those two sources.
Thisisme.live.
Yeah.
I love that.
A little bit different. So I think that's why we went with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One last question for you, man. What do you want people to take away from you?
If anything else is that, and this isn't to say that everyone's out there living a miserable existence, but unquestionably, nobody's at where they want to be. Nobody is. Nobody's satisfied with where they're at, because the better you get, wherever point you're ever at, your potential is exactly the same relative distance away. So you always want more. So it's the ability to say, there's always a better way to live. There's like, no matter what I'm doing right now, there's a better way to live. I don't care how lean you are, there's a better way to live. I don't care how rich you are, there's a better way to live. I don't care how in love you are, there's a better way to live. So don't stop chasing that. And don't just think that you have to accept and be okay with where you're at in life. Like, you're allowed to want to be the best at everything you do. It just requires you to show up to that and acknowledge it, regulate against it, because any change you're going to try to make is unquestionably going to be uncomfortable. And your body and your mind will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven.
Hell yeah. I love it, man. Well, dude, I appreciate it so much for you coming on today, man. It has been an absolute pleasure. And it's been awesome to get to know you more and more. And I look forward to furthering relationship, man. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
My biggest takeaway podcast